I recently had a project where I had to cut a great number of lengths of a polyester cord like this. And as anyone who has cut synthetic material in rope or cord form knows, you have to melt the end in order to keep it from unraveling. If you simply cut the end of the cord with scissors or a knife, it's going to fray a bit, and then when you melt it, you're going to get a lump like this. And what you really want is a nice, clean end like that doesn't get wider than the rope and just stays nice and tight together. In order to get that, you usually have to do something like wrap tape around the cord where you're going to cut it in the middle of the tape, and then melt the end of the cord, and then take the tape off. That's a bunch of extra steps that are kind of annoying and time consuming, and you've got to have tape around and do all that. So after thinking about it a bit, I came up with what I think is a better solution. You take your cord and you take a lighter, you just melt a ½ inch to an inch of the surface of the cord around where you want it to cut. Don't want to melt it too much, don't want to melt through that outer layer. And then as it cools, you can roll it to get it a little tighter. And what that does is, once it's cooled, the outer layer is nice and hard. It's not going to fray. It's all melted together already. Then you can take a PEX tubing cutter like this for cutting PEX plumbing and get it right on the area that you've melted, and a quick snip. And there it is. You've got a nice clean cut that is not going to fray and is pretty much solidly melted. This also works for heavier material, although the cutter isn't really as useful in that case, because this is some cheap polypropylene rope from the hardware store, and it's pretty squishy around there. So when I melt it, start fusing the outside. Takes a bit longer. The outside is nicely fused, but the inside is still pretty squishy, and I've tried it with the cutter, and it just doesn't cut those inner threads very well. You wind up with bits that aren't cut, and you've got to hack away at it, and it makes a kind of messy end. But if you then, after fusing the outside, take a sharp knife and just cut through there, then you've got a nice clean cut end that doesn't flare out, and you can fuse the end of that a little bit more to make sure it doesn't come apart. Now, this extra melting does tend to make the edges pop out a little bit, but it's still a pretty good clean edge. That's the unfused version. So next time you've got some cord to cut, skip the tape, just melt the ½ inch to an inch of the area that you want to cut, handy nippers, and clip it right off. Works great.